Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Global The Last. Ladies and gentlemen, last in our 4-part series to help you prepare for the Regents in the last of the 2018-19 season. We're going to start right where we left off with communism. Obviously, I'm going to take a look at the two communist states, just compare them side by side as to where they were in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s. So we got China coming in, and they are under the leadership of Deng Xiaoping. He is coming in right after Mao, and he decides really to westernize and modernize the economy. He decides to open up to foreign influence, and since the economy under Mao has been just awful, and things have been really doing quite badly. There was no industry. There was very little agriculture due to the failed Great Leap Forward, which was actually a great leap backward. And things weren't going so well. So pretty much it was like coming literally from the rock bottom economy under Mao to literally the mountaintops under Deng Xiaoping. If you look at graphs of the economy under China, you can pinpoint the exact time when Deng Xiaoping took office and began to open up the economy, transition away from a command or communist economy to a more capitalist economy, opening up for foreign investment, attracting U.S. companies at a very low cost to move their factories to China, a huge, huge deal, establishing the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's not something you need to know. Yeah, but they established this really good connection that led to insane amounts of economic growth in China. But on the other hand, in terms of civil liberties, the communist government kept a close eye on them. There was still only one political party, freedom of speech, dissent against the government, all very, very limited. And they are to this day, with the Great Firewall that prevents people from accessing things like Facebook, where they may get the rebellious ideas against the Communist Party. And for the large part, the people of China are willing to make this trade because of the fact that their lives economically are so good and prosperous. The challenge for them in the upcoming years, though, will be to spread that wealth from lower income China from urban China, where all the cities are and the action is, to more rural China, where the farmlands are and things may not be as prosperous. So that's going to be their thing there. So the thing you need to remember, China, to sum it up all in a nutshell, is they have a good, strong economy due to westernization, modernization, and transition to a capitalist market, but civil liberties there are still lacking. And now to the Soviet Union. We talked about this, again, at the end of last episode. Mikhail Gorbachev, he was a Soviet leader who helped bring an anti-communism in the Soviet Union, restore the Russian Federation to just the Russian Federation, and open up the government in both ways, both economically and through expansion of civil liberties. He did it economically through perestroika. This was the program in which Gorbachev changed the economy of the Soviet Union from a communist or command economy to a market capitalist or free enterprise economy. So this is the difference between the government owning and operating businesses to individuals being able to own and operate businesses. So he did that, much similar to the way Deng Xiaoping did it in China, and under the kind of market capitalist society, things did expand a little bit. The economy did improve, but just not really as much. There was a lot of hostilities, so foreign companies, especially U.S. companies, were hesitant to come into the Soviet Union because there was still that kind of Russian fear present in the United States. But another big thing he did to appeal to U.S. leaders and to just appeal to the world and say the Soviet Union is a better place now is the establishment of the Glasnost program. This is a program in which Gorbachev allowed freedom of speech and civil liberties within the Soviet Union. It was a major step towards democracy in the Soviet Union. He was the first democratically elected president. This gave way to, anyway, Boris Yeltsin, who was the first democratically elected president in the history of Russia. So this was a big deal because it kind of brought Russia into kind of the track where it is now. Now we have Putin, who has definitely clamped down on civil liberties a little bit and kind of is running a little bit of a farce where he and the loyalists switch off positions between president, which is the head honcho job, and prime minister, which is kind of the right-hand man position, which is like a little bit unfair because they could just keep switching off every, I believe, 14 years, so they still have a hold on power either way. So because Putin pretty much controls that right-hand man whenever he is not in power, whenever he has to take the presidency due to the Russian constitution. So that's kind of a little bit of trick they play to clamp down on democracy. But, yeah, that's kind of the way it works. And gradually, as this glasnost and perestroika programs begin to take effect, communism begins to really falter. Throughout the Cold War, Germany has been divided into two nations, West Germany and East Germany. West Germany is the democratic country controlled by the United States and allied powers such as Great Britain and France. East Germany is a communist country controlled by the Soviet Union, and that is all changing at 1989 when the Berlin Wall is finally torn down, symbolizing the end of the Cold War and the end of communism. As 1990 will see West Germany and East Germany reunited to form one democratic country. So, yeah, this brings us to human rights violations that took place over the span of this entire curriculum this year. Human rights violations, just so you know, are the basic rights that all human beings are supposed to have, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to vote, and the right to live. Genocide is an attempt to exterminate a group of people. It is the ultimate violation of human rights. Examples of this include the Armenian Massacre, where the Turks of the Ottoman Empire murdered about 1 million Armenians during World War I, the Ukrainian famine, where Joseph Stalin, the dictator of the Soviet Union, took away food from the people of Ukraine, which resulted in the deaths of millions of people, the Holocaust, which is where Hitler and the Nazis murdered 6 million Jews during World War II, Rwanda, where the Hutus killed 1 million Tutsis in 1994. Pol Pot was the ruler of Cambodia, who killed 2 million people within his nation. Yugoslavia, where Slobodan Milosevic was the Serbian ruler of Yugoslavia, who has violently attacked non-Serbs, especially Albanians, living in his land. So those are all various genocides that you're going to need to know about. Yugoslavia, Cambodia, Rwanda, especially, as well as Ukraine and Armenia. Those are going to be the ones you're going to want to maybe double back and look at the lessons on a little bit, because those may be asked about. But the good thing is, all the multiple choice questions and all the document-based questions, they're going to have some sort of prompts, some information for you to draw on at the moment that will specifically relate to whatever the questions will happen to be about. So that could be very helpful. Yeah, and on that note, we are going to turn on to economic systems that we need to know. Economic systems, again, is the way that a society produces, distributes, and uses goods and services. The Regents may ask you about three of these. A traditional economy, which is based on barter, trade without using money, and subsistence agriculture, which is farming in which the crops are used only to feed the farmer and his family. People may have the same occupation as their parents, usually related to farming. This was back in the more older time. This is definitely not in like really not in Soviet Russia, but it was definitely maybe taking place under Mao, similar times like that, maybe back during the period of the French Revolution, if you want to go all the way back to Enlightenment periods, that kind of began to change, but it's definitely an older thing, obviously. Traditional economy, which is more agricultural based. Economic decisions are often influenced by tradition and religious beliefs as well in a traditional economy. A market economy is kind of what we saw in the United States, Great Britain, pretty much any country that wasn't communist or controlled by the Soviet Union, pretty much all the capitalist countries that we know. Individuals, not the government, own businesses and make economic decisions. Individuals, not the government, determine the price of goods based on supply and demand. And the terms capitalism, laissez-faire, and free enterprise have the same meaning as market economy. It's all the same. Individuals have control of the means of production, not the government. Most of the world today, including the United States, uses a market economy. And it is kind of a sliding scale, because on the far end, you got laissez-faire capitalism, where the individual can literally just do anything. And then there's sometimes where you have somewhat in between, like where we kind of have the United States. We don't have a full market economy. We do have some functions controlled by the government, like some forms of social security, that's social safety net is controlled by the government, where we offer health care and disability checks, or just checks to poor people because we paid into it through taxes and such. Also, there is the Medicare and Medicaid programs that are run by the government. Schools are run by the government. Post office are run by the government. So it's not all of it is completely private enterprise. It kind of exists on a spectrum. And then we want to go down the spectrum. You got a country like, for example, Norway, which is going to have, or Finland or Sweden, it's going to have government-run healthcare. UK is government-run healthcare. So more and more elements of public life are run by the government. And then you get to a command economy, which is another important thing that we need to know about our communist economy. The government, not individuals, are going to be owning businesses here and making economic decisions, and the government will determine the price of goods. This is the far extreme side of things. Communist countries like the Soviet Union and under Joseph Stalin and China under Mao Zedong used a command economy. So, yeah, the important thing is to understand it all kind of exists. Market economy and command economy are kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum, and each country has an economy at a different point on that spectrum in terms of their philosophies and beliefs. So there are some recent issues you may need to know about today. Palestinians are fighting the Jews for more control over the Holy Land in the Middle East. Tibet is a Buddhist region that wants independence and self-government from China. That's a conflict going on today. Catholics and Protestants have both fought for control of Northern Ireland. At the moment, there's an interesting situation to do with the idea of Britain leaving the European Union, where Northern Ireland and Ireland are kind of debating about their future relationship because Ireland is still very firmly in the European Union. And how will Northern Ireland and Ireland come to terms with that breakup, because Northern Ireland and Ireland share a land border. Northern Ireland, part of Britain, is not going to be in the European Union once Brexit takes place. And a big negotiating sticking point is how that border will function with respect to trade. And that could be something you may be asked about how this Irish border is going to function, as there is also a lot of ethnic and religious conflict there between the Catholics and the Protestants. Muslims in Pakistan and Hindus in India both claim control over a region called Kashmir. That fight has existed ever since Mahatma Gandhi's day, where he split up these two, not him, he didn't want it, but other leaders around him split up India into Pakistan and India to avoid religious conflicts between the Muslims and the Hindus. Serbs, Croatians, and Muslims have battled for control over the Balkans, which is the southeast area of Europe. The Kurds are a group of people who have been scattered throughout areas of Turkey, Iraq, and Iran. They want to create their own nation called Kurdistan. Chechnya is a Muslim region that has used terrorism to gain independence from Russia. So that is something they're fighting for this day. There's also a host of environmental problems worth knowing about. The ozone layer is a small layer of gases in the atmosphere that absorbs the sun's ultraviolet rays and protect us from skin cancer. It's currently being destroyed due to chemicals from pollution, and it demonstrates the need for stricter pollution laws throughout the world. Acid rain is a big problem. The rain contains chemicals due to pollution. Demonstrates, again, a need for stricter pollution laws. Deforestation eliminates the rainforests in Brazil, Amazon, which is near the Amazon basin, Costa Rica, and the Congo, as well as that's in Central Africa. Another problem we're knowing about is desertification, which is the changing of arable land, which is fertile land for farming, to desert. It include deforestation and overgrazing. When you cut down on the trees, the soil tends to pretty much go to pot. And you also have cows or whatever grazing on too much. That can really hurt the soil as well. It happens with the rise of human population, the rise of cows, more cows, not good. It's especially a concern in a region south of the Sahara Desert in Africa called Sahel. Chernobyl was a nuclear disaster in Ukraine. Thousands were exposed to radiation or cancer. This is in 1986. This was when a nuclear reactor used to make power, like electrical power the light bulbs in your house, when it exploded, and leaks happened throughout Ukraine and even spread to places like Europe, like Great Britain, across the English Channel. So it was a huge explosion. If you look on a map between Ukraine and Great Britain, you could see how far. There was evidence of that, like, throughout the world. They're still kind of roped off today. It's a pretty incredible situation. Also, the greenhouse effect is trapping warm air in the atmosphere, leading to global warming. It's caused by chemicals like carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It could lead to flooding of coastal areas. Some solutions have been proposed, such as the Kyoto Protocol, international agreement calling for a decrease in carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases from 1990 levels. All the problems listed demonstrate the international cooperation is needed to improve the Earth's environment. Another big landmark that's not probably going to be included on the Regents was the Paris Climate Accords that Barack Obama signed for the United States that Trump has since pulled out of, talking about how much emissions they want to release each year. Or major world powers, almost all world powers actually signed on to this. Finally, science and technology, the Green Revolution, which was a use of technology to increase